We are working on question 4. Open up your Excel file and make sure you are on the data spreadsheet page. And remember, question 4 is where people were answering the question about how many minutes they had to wait to get a table at the restaurant. So we're going to start by having Excel count up all the responses. So click in cell E3 and then move down and select all 75 responses in that column to question 4. And we're going to make another pivot table. So go up, click on Insert, click on Pivot Table, and click OK. Then click the checkbox next to the word Seating Time. If the row labels do not appear, you may have to drag that down here. But we also want them counted, so click where it says Seating Time and drag that down into the Values box. Now, write down on a sheet of paper the numbers that it gave you. There's a space on the instructions where you can write that if you want to do it there. So my numbers were 15, 20, 19, 14, and 7. Those are the frequencies for each of those 5 classes. Now, go down to the bottom and click where it says amount of time to get to that particular page or sheet of your Excel file. And you should see something that looks like this. And we are going to be filling in this grouped frequency distribution. Notice there's a column here that's already filled in for the 5 different classes, 0 to 14, 15 to 29, 30 to 44, 45 to 59, and 60 to 74. So fill in the frequency for each class here in column E with the numbers that you just now wrote down. So my numbers were 15 and 20 and 19 and 14 and 7. And they should add up to 75. So we're going to check that. So click in cell E8. And now go up here in the top right corner and click where it says Auto Sum. And then hit Enter on your keyboard. And we've just asked Excel to give us the sum of the numbers in this column. And they do add up to 75, which is what we wanted. They should be centered already, but if they are not, select them and click up here to center the elements in these cells. And now we want the cumulative frequencies. So click in cell F3, and now my first cumulative frequency is just going to be the same as the first frequency. I could just type the number, but instead I'm going to type equals E3. And then down below that in F4, I'm going to type equals E3 plus E4. And then below that, I'm going to type equals E3 plus E4 plus E5, so that it adds together the numbers in those 3 frequency cells. Then down below that, in F6, I'm going to type equals E3 plus E4 plus E5 plus E6. And then below that, I'm going to type equals E3 plus E4 plus E5 plus E6 plus E7. And notice the last cumulative frequency is 75, because that's what all of them together add up to. Now I'm going to click Save to make sure I've saved my work so far. And now we're going to go over and complete this second table. So first we're going to fill in the midpoints. Those are the numbers in this column. So I'm going to click here in cell H3, and I'm going to type equals parenthesis B3 plus D3, close parentheses, and then the slash, which is the symbol for divided by 2. So what I just asked Excel to do was to take the number in B3, which is 0, plus the number in D3, which is 14, add them together and divide by 2 to get the number that was right in between, the midpoint in between the lower and upper limits of that class. And now I'm going to autofill, copy that down. So click in cell H3 again, and click in that little green box in the lower right corner and drag down through the other 4 cells in that column and release. And that should get copied down so that you've got a similar formula in each of those that give you the midpoints of those other classes. So notice 22 is the midpoint between 15 and 29. We got 37, the midpoint between 30 and 44. 52 is the midpoint for 45 to 59. And 67, the midpoint between 60 and 74. Now we're going to fill in the next column for frequency times midpoint. So click in cell I3 and type equals E3 times H3. So we're multiplying together the frequency here in E3 times the midpoint here in H3. Go back and click I3 again. Click that little green box in the lower right corner and drag down to copy that down to the other cells to get the frequency times midpoint for all the other classes. Now we need the frequency times midpoint squared. So click in J3 and type equals E3 times, that's the asterisk, H3, and then squared, so that's the caret, the up pointy symbol that you get by holding down shift and typing 6, and then 2. So E3 times H3 to the 2 power. Now go back, click in cell J3 again, click the little green box, hold it down, drag it down to the other cells, and release to copy those down. Now we need the totals of those 2 columns. The total for the frequency times midpoint column and the total for the frequency times midpoint squared column. So first click in cell I8 and then go up and click up here where it says auto sum and hit enter. Now click in cell J8 and go up here and click auto sum and hit enter. And I'm going to save my work so far. Now we're going to go down here and do some calculations. To find the mean, click in cell G10 and type equals I8, that's the letter I, and then the number 8, divided by, that's the slash, E8, and hit enter. That's because the mean for a grouped frequency distribution is the sum of the frequency times midpoint divided by the total frequency. Now for the variance, make sure you're in cell G11 and type equals parenthesis J8 minus I8 to the second power, so caret 2, slash E8, so we're dividing by E8. Now close parentheses, divided by, another slash, parenthesis, E8 minus, and this is the number 1, and close parentheses. And hit enter. Remember, you can find this formula in the instructions. Now for the standard deviation, that's the square root of the variance. So make sure you're in cell G12 and type equals equals SQRT parenthesis G11 close parentheses. So I'm asking for the square root of the number that's in G11, which is the variance. Now for the mean and the standard deviation, we want them both to the nearest tenth. We want them so that there's only one digit after the decimal point. So I'm going to click back in cell G10 and then go up and click the decrease decimal so that there's only one digit showing after the decimal point. For me, it's 32.6. And I'm going to do the same for the standard deviation number. Click in that cell, go up and click decrease decimal until there's only one digit showing after the decimal point. Now we're going to type in the range. So I'm going to click the cell G13. And while I'm there, it should say text up here. This cell should be formatted for text. If it's not, you may have to click the little down arrow and then click where it says text. But it should already be set up that way. So while we're in cell G13, type 0 and then a dash and then 74. So the minutes overall run between 0 and 74 minutes. And the modal class, well, look at your frequencies and figure out which class has the highest frequency. For me, it's the class from 15 to 29. There were more people who had to wait 15 to 29 minutes than any of those other times. So my modal class is the 15 to 29 minute class. So in cell G14, make sure it's formatted for text, and then type, well, I'm typing 15 to 29. If you had a different modal class, you'd type something different. So that takes care of the grouped frequency distribution and the calculations based on that. Now there's still something else we need to do. We need to have Excel draw us a histogram based on this frequency distribution. But I'm going to end this video here and make a separate video where I show you how to do the histogram.